another thing I want to share. And God shared this with me earlier when I was driving. And I feel like God wants me to share it tonight, so I'm going to share it. You know, as I was driving through the neighborhood of a place where there's somebody that lives in that neighborhood that I'm not a big fan of. And I remember as I was driving through that neighborhood, I remember God speaking to me about 2 or 3 miles down the road after I had driven by there. And I remember God was giving me this revelation that, you know, the reason why you need to forgive is because you've got to understand his heart is he wants everybody to get saved. And a lot of times we look at things just like, you know, with insecurity, we look at everything as what's going on right now. Like, you know, how do they treat me and I treat them, and they're mad at me, I'm mad at them, and they did me really wrong and they broke my heart and they hurt me real bad. And so God, I want you to get them. God, I want you to, man, sick all the heaven on them and let them pay. Let them know that they're having to pay because of what they did. And it's not that God's not righteous. It's not that God doesn't have righteous judgment. It's not that God doesn't deal. He does. But God's overall heart is always towards redemption. God's heart is always to redeem everyone. Because when you step out of this tent and you step into eternity and you're where God is, you're not really going to be all that hung up on who did what to who on the earth. When you step into eternity, the sheer joy, the ecstasy of life, being with God forevermore, it makes you forget all about the tears that you cried on earth, all about the pain that you felt, all the things that you thought were such a big deal that you spent all your time meditating on and thinking about and processing and all that, talking to your therapist about and whatnot, weren't really worth all of that when you step into glory and you see God for who he is, and you get into the presence and you're there forever, into the fullness of joy. And I believe that there'll be so much joy that you won't mind if your enemies are saved too. You won't mind if they get to share in it. Because you'll begin to understand that humanity, and people make mistakes, people do things. People get off kilter in their thinking. People get selfish. And you get into this place where you begin to realize that all God wants to do is he wants none to perish, but that all would come into everlasting life. And that the reason why that you want to forgive, and the thing that I really just felt God really impress upon my heart is he's talking about hell. That in hell, there's going to be weeping and gnashing of teeth. There's going to be torture, extreme torture. And that torture will go on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever in sheer torture, engulfed in flames, wanting just a break, wanting to just at least just a time out or a pause from the torture. And I believe that if you saw your enemy burning in hell, at first you might think, yeah, God, you're getting them, they're getting their due. But I think after you see the sheer agony, after a short moment, you'd say, oh, but God, no, not that. No, God, not that, God. No, don't, they hurt me and all that, but don't, they not that, God. I forgive them, God, let them out of that place. And we need to understand that this is what God looks at. God looks at eternity, he looks at the timeline of life, and he looks at your life as a vapor. And he looks at our life as it comes and then it goes. And that it won't be very long before you'll be with him for all of eternity. And so, spending too much time worrying about what everybody says and does and thinks on earth is a waste of emotional energy, and it's a waste of time. When we could be moving forward in the promise of God, in the plan of God, focused on what it is God has called us to do, and not focusing on all of these other things that really are just tied to the earth. They're not tied to your eternity. They're tied to the earth. They're not part of your eternity. They're not part of your forever and ever and ever. They're part of the earth. They're part of what happened on the earth. But they're not part of what's going to happen for all eternity. They're not part of that. But we allow them to affect it the more time we spend on it. Amen. So I just wanted to share that with you. I hope that blessed you in some way. Lord, I give you praise. I give you glory. I thank you for tonight, God. I hope that this blessed some people out there. I don't normally just go off script like that, but I felt led that way. So anyway, Lord, I just give you praise. You guys have a very blessed night. I appreciate you hanging with me. And have a good night. Talk to you soon. Bye.